Your private well is the gateway to your family's drinking water. The maintenance and service and testing of that well is your responsibility, according to the Environmental Protection Agency and the Department of Public Health across the entire United States. If you're not taking the right steps in protecting your well, you could be exposing your family to harmful toxins that could hurt their body. In this video, I'm going to go ahead and share with you some of the key things that you can do in order to protect the health and welfare of your well, which in turn will take care of you and your family. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to give you an explanation of why you are the water authority for your family. Yes, we're going to give you some tips and tricks so that you can understand what it's like for owning a private well. Well, first of all, I want to say that in my opinion, I love private wells, right? Private wells means that it is your own water source. It doesn't belong to anybody else, it belongs to you. So to me, that's a great thing. And by the way, the government is not involved, right? The government's not involved with your water supply. So we want to first stress number one, the government has basically nothing to do with your private well. Yes, it's like the wild, wild west. Nobody's never going to knock on your door and say, hey, let's test your water, right? They test it usually when you sell a home to a new homeowner. Now, every state's a little bit different, but in general terms, all they're checking for is coliform in the water. That's where the septic field, this is where the sewage of the house on one side might cross-contaminate and get into your drinking water and then contaminate your family's well, making your family sick. Or you might live next to a marsh or a river or a lake where the geese, the wild animals, they defecate or their sewage gets into the river or lake, and then that slowly migrates into that aquifer. So there is a variety of ways that first and foremost, you could get coliform in your water. So the state, when transacting a house, most states, I think almost all states, require to have that test done. About 10 to 15% of the wells actually have coliform. So the one visual indicator, by the way, of coliform that we've noticed is if you take the lid off the back of the toilet and look in that reservoir that's holding the water and it's got that, the float in there. If we see a lot of bubbling action in there, like a jelly, almost like a milky, like a kid took a straw and blew bubbles in there, that's usually an indicator of coliform being in your water. Now, that's not scientific proof. Every state agency, every federal agency, the CDC, everybody says the only way to know for sure what's in your water is to actually do a well water test. Now that well water test is very critical. And so many people tell me, I will go into their home and they're like, oh yeah, we had our water tested. How long ago was that? 5 years ago. It's like, wow, no. You have to understand that the Department of Public Health recommends coliform testing in most states to be done 4 times a year. Yes, 4 times a year. People are like, what, are you insane? And it's like, yeah, 4 times a year. That's where we're checking to see if coliform from your sewage or from a lake or some other source got into your drinking water. And coliform does happen. So that simple test is like $15. It's not that expensive, but it's worth testing because, of course, the reason why it's so scary is coliform, if we drink it, for elderly infants, people who are going through chemotherapy, whose immune system is depleted, maybe radiation, whatever the case is, those, did I say infants and elderly? Yeah. So they are very susceptible to coliform being in water, and actually it could kill them. So it's very, very, very important that you check your well water on a regular basis, especially if you have kids, right? Oh my God, I've walked into so many homes and they're just making formula with the well water. It's like, man, did you know you're supposed to test that? And nobody really knows that. Well, we do, and we're going to add a link here to the EPA document. The EPA produced a great, beautiful document that teaches you about owning a private well. So it's very important that you take a look and get a download of that video. It's a PDF. It will be great for you. Teaches you a lot of the things I'm this video is doing for you. So look at it. You want to understand it because it's a great tool for you and your family. And in there, it gives you a laundry list of things to test for. Very, very, very important to test for those things. By the way, these toxins that you're going to test for are the same toxins that they test for in city water. And you have to understand that there's basically two categories, right? You can test for things like coliform and nitrates. Nitrates causes blue baby syndrome, so you want to test for nitrates. And lead, those are the top 3 things that the state's saying that you should do every year. And basically, that's the 3 that they make you do, most states make you do when you transact a home from one person to the other. Just 3. That's it. Is that all of them? No. The government, when they test water for cities, there's several tests, 20, 30, 40 different tests. And so what we want to do is we also want to perform a full test. The EPA document will give you a laundry list. It's like fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides. They're going to be talking gasoline. We're going to look for toluene. We're going to look for a lot of things that if you drink the water over a long period of time, arsenic 1, arsenic 2, radium 228, radium 226. These are all toxins that can get in the water, this aquifer, and taking a drink of water every day can build up in your body. If you haven't seen some of my videos, I talk about how this is just one gigantic filter. In our industry, we say buy a filter or be the filter. Why is that? Why do we say that? Well, I like Sadhguru. He says, if I eat a banana, in 4 hours, I'm that banana. I'd like to add to that, if I drink a glass of water, in 4 minutes, I'm that glass of water. You have to remember, we're 60, 70% water. Our brain's 90% water. Your mommy and daddy were right. You are what you eat. You are what you drink. I was obviously born like 8 pounds. Yeah, I was the heavy one. I had a twin. He was like 4 or 5 pounds. But anyhow, we're born, and look at us. Now I'm 180 pounds, right? So how did I get there? Well, it's pretty simple. 2 things, soil and water. Yes, soil and water. The soil and the water helped nutrition me, provide me the ingredients to actually grow to be what I am today, just like it does for you. So you are what you consume. Now, if we're drinking water, we're made up of 60 to 70% water. By the way, if you think about your body, you have an esophagus, a stomach, a pancreas, a liver, a kidney, upper and lower intestines. We have these organs which are designed to do one thing. Take what you consume and make it you, right? Take what you consume and make it you. So if that's the case, then we are what we consume. And by the way, if we are consuming things that might be toxins, doesn't it make sense to take a clean drop of water and flush the system with it? Right? Don't you use clean water when you wash things at home? You don't take dirty water and wash your plates with it. You want clean water. No different, man. If we're building up toxins in our body because we're eating, foods that have fertilizers on it, doesn't it make sense that we take super clean water and pull that stuff out of the body? Well, it does to me. So if you're looking to be more healthy, it's imperative that you test this water, because with that test, guess what you can do? Any guesses? Well, yes, you get to tell a water authority, water expert like me, hey, here's my test. I want you to prove and sell me a system that's going to take that out and prove to me that it comes out. Way better than just going and buying a water filter from somebody and hope that it's better, right? You can either hope or you can know for sure. Again, since you're the water authority for your family, you are the one that's got to give me direction, right? Or whoever you deal with. So I implore you, recognize that you should at least test for coliform, nitrates, and lead at least once, twice a year. The aquifer, it goes up and down depending on rainfall, seasons, barometric pressure. So it's ever changing, right? So you want to check that on a regular basis for coliform and nitrates. Then at least once every couple years, the EPA, the CDC, they do say this full thorough test looking for toxins that we recommend, or the toxins that we talk about. Again, you can get to the link through our website and our link down below. Important for you to do. Again, that's going to tell you what's going on with this. Now, I've had tested many homes, and I can promise you, when I've tested the homes, it's been people either saying, hey, I keep getting sick, or I have this stomach thing, and it's like you test the water and what, boom, they have coliform bacteria. Oh my God, that's so scary, right? So what can you do about it? Well, your job is to protect your well, and that means that this well casing is supposed to be about 12 to 18 inches off the ground. So if this is grass here, again, I don't know if that shows up very well, but if we've got the grass here and you have a well casing outside, that's where that well cap is at, we want that to be about 12 to 18 inches above the ground. That's about like this, right? In that casing, you want to check, because I can't tell you how many times I've seen lawnmowers that hit that, or if it's close to a driveway, a snowplow hits it. Guess what happens? They're made out of PVC or steel, and they crack. And then guess what happens? Yes, little critters, whether they're bugs or little animals, crawl in here. Why? Because this is warm air coming up, or cooler during the summertime, right? So they make little nests in there, and guess what happens to them? They die and they fall into your drinking water. I've also had cases where someone moves the horse fence to here, and so now the horse manure, they're spreading horse manure all over the yard, and what happens? It melts and it slides down, right down that side of that PVC tube that's going down into the well. You got to remember that some people's wells you want to check with your well company, because some people's wells are only 50 feet deep. That's it. They drilled 50 feet, they put the pump in there, and they're pumping the water in there into their home, and it's only got 50 feet from here to there. Some people's wells are 200 feet. I've seen some wells that are 1,000 feet. Every well depth has their own issue. Like, I've had numerous customers who are like, Andrew, I'm not going to need you because I decided to invest $100,000 and go to 1,000 feet. I'm like, okay, just so you know, when you go 1,000 feet, what we've typically seen is radium-228 and 226 that gets in the water, and you still have iron bacteria. What did these people do? They drilled 1,000 feet thinking they wouldn't need to buy water filter systems, but when they got the water test back, what did they find? Radium. Now, radium is very, very common with aquifers around the entire country. So again, and by the way, it's a very expensive test to do that. You can get a screen for radium. Radium, by the way, if you find a pocket of homes where typically like Lake Zurich, Illinois, when we take a look at Lake Zurich, Illinois, most homes there violate for radon. That's where the radium is percolating through the earth, and it gets into the basement of the house, and the house, when it goes to transact from one homeowner to the other homeowner, it has radium-222. Well, guess what? Not only did that radium get into the basement of the house, it gets into the water supply, and that turns in radium-228 and 226. Obviously, still getting into the drinking water now. So if you've noticed or you've heard that there's a lot of radium in basements of homes when people go to sell it, ding, 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 that should tell you you probably want to do a radium screen for your drinking water. Very, very, very important to do. Again, water testing is critical for you because you're going to need to understand what takes place in your drinking water. Now, not only do you want that 12 to 18 inches above the ground, don't fertilize within 30 feet. 30 feet, yes, of that well cap. I can't tell you how many times I'll show up at someone's house and there's a landscaper fertilizing, and I'm like, no, he's spraying it right on there. Well, think about that for a second. Let's use our logic. It rains, and guess what happens? Again, it slides right down the side of that pipe, getting into the drinking water. Again, we've seen a lot of testing done and being positive because people are not maintaining a far distance from that well cap, because this is the access to your fresh water. It's so important to watch out for that. So again, we're making sure that the well cap's high. By the way, if your house has been built and it's in a valley like that, that's a concern, because look, rain with bird poop or animal waste can easily over time fill up and all of a sudden have water going over the top. If you've had a flood in your area, don't drink the water. Again, I'll say that again. If you've had a flood where that thing got covered, don't drink the water at all. You got to be very, very careful, because anything could now get into that drinking water, because there's a vent up here that allows air to go back and forth. So now water is going to easily get down in there and you can get very sick. That's why they say the best way to build it is either on your well cap comes out of a hill, or, is a elevated like that, or it's flat. We don't want it to be inside of a valley. If it is, they always recommend extending that up a little higher. So call us if you have any questions on that, because it's very important just to protect that too in case you have a flood. Now, if you did have a flood, side note, you would want to definitely wait till that water regresses, and then would want to chlorinate the well with chlorine, and you would definitely want to get yourself a chlorine injection system for that home moving forward, because once coliform gets into the well, even though you shock it, we see it come back almost 100% of the time. So, another side note, if you bought a house from a seller and it failed a test for coliform and or coliform, what they can do is chlorinate the well. That's where they just drop chlorine down into this aquifer and then let it sit for a little while and then flush it out. We see it coming back almost 100% of the time. Now what happens is they chlorinate the well, they flush the chlorine out, now they can go ahead and sell it to you, and it comes out negative. So now they sell you the house, and you have to look through your paperwork to see, did that well test positive for coliform and then test negative? If that's the case, you want to be vigilant. I would be testing at least 4 times a year. Can't tell you how many times we've seen people tell us that exact same story, and within 3 months or 6 months, it's testing positive. So you want to be vigilant on that. And here's the reason why. You drop just a gallon of chlorine down here, this is, again, billions of gallons of water. And there's nooks and crannies and all the little spots and pockets. So you can't really get the chlorine into all of those places. So that's why it's important that you're vigilant on testing your water on a regular basis. Now, the other thing you need to be aware of when owning a well, not only you do not want to fertilize and keep that well cap above 18 inches, but we want to remember anything we put down the drain in your home is going to could get into your drinking water. So you can see, like, this is my really awesome drawing of a sewage line, but it goes outside the house. Now, if you notice, we have this large tank, 200 gallons, 150 gallons, something like that. It's a septic tank. Now, what is a septic tank doing? Most people don't know. Well, the sewage, the paper products and the solids and the liquids go down this drain. They get into that tank. Now, the goal of that tank is to allow bacteria to grow. Yes, we want bacteria because it feeds and softens up the paper products and the solids that you flush down the drain. Now, what's really, really bad for bacteria? We don't want it here, but we do want it there because it's digesting everything. So the last thing we want to go down this drain is chlorine products, bleach products, iron outs, rust out, all these nasty chemicals, because they're going to ruin the digestive tract of your septic field. And you have to remember, what you have is basically either it's through gravity or through a pump, that it's going to pump your sewage water out through these fingers, they call them pipes, and on the bottom of the pipes there's just little holes. And those little holes allow the liquid to fall down. But if it didn't digest the paper products correctly, guess what happens with those holes? Yes, they get plugged up. So we strongly recommend that you're careful with the chemicals you go put down the drain. Now, what happens when that occurs? You get a crack in this finger, and then you have raw sewage that's basically coming out, and it's easy for that to cross-contaminate into the drinking water, because eventually, through whether it's 50 feet or 150 feet, you got that liquid that's percolating down to get back into your drinking water. Now it's a perfect hydrological cycle. You're taking water out of the ground, you're using it in the home, and then you're flushing it back down the drain, and it eventually gets back into the aquifer. Now, a lot of times it evaporates. So most of the time when it's in that field, it's actually evaporating and it's making your grass, if you ever noticed, greener. That's so funny because in droughts, we'll see these straight lines outside people's homes and you go, what is that? Well, that's your septic field. And they're like, what? Yeah, that's your septic field because those lines are your sewage. And again, the water does like to migrate up as well as it does go down. So important for you to understand that you have to be careful with what you put down the drain. All very, very, very important if you're going to be, when you own this private well. By the way, if you like this video, please press like, please share, please subscribe. We'd love to be able to have you part of our community where we are passionate about making you and your family more healthy. By the way, if you have a friend or family member that's on a well, please share it because hopefully it's as useful to them as it is to you. Now, when we're looking at the well, the first step is, as we mentioned, we want to test the water on an every couple year basis for all the toxins. About once a year, we want to check for coliform nitrates and lead. By the way, if the casing is metal, when they put those metal pipes together, in many cities or many counties and states, we, as plumbers, we would use solder. That solder was made of lead. So that's why we see homes testing positive for lead when that well casing is metal. If it's PVC, it was installed after 1984 when the federal government said no more using lead in drinking water. Riddle me why they did that when we know that that was part of the cause to the Roman Empire falling. I don't know, but they did. They allowed lead in the United States up until 1984, so you do want to make sure that if it's a metal casing, you're going to test it for lead as well. As you can see, that water line is usually 15 inches or greater in freezing temperature areas. It's going to be even deeper. So you want to protect this with all your might. You want to check your well case or your pressure tank at least once a year. We recommend that you have a licensed professional inspect your well at least once a year. The EPA, the Department of Public Health, is a little ambiguous on that. I've seen Minnesota's pretty strict, saying do it once a year. Sometimes people are saying every couple years. Most well companies, we deal with a great company in the Chicagoland area named Peter Snelton and Sons. They do recommend once a year inspection. That's where they're going to be checking the pressure gauge to make sure it's going at a slow pace between 40 and 60 or 50 and 70 psi. It's going to go slow up and down. If you turn on the water and you see this, the gauge going click, 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 you have a problem. Your pressure tank inside the house has probably failed and you need to fix that. Here's why. Pro tip. If that's happening to you, here's the pro tip. If you don't fix it, you're going to have more problems with your water than you could possibly imagine. That's because that pump is going on and off, on and off, on and off. And imagine that for a second. If this thing for days, weeks, years on end or a year on end is just going off and on, well, you're going to burn out that pump, number one. But the second thing is you're going to agitate this aquifer. We've literally seen in South Barrington a client that actually that happened to, and they got sand in their well. It was a horrendous headache. They tried drilling a new well. They tried everything. We finally had to put a special sand trap in that system. So you know that is very complicated. A lot of water companies don't know how to deal with that. We've had where that agitation took place so much that the well could only produce 2 gallons a minute flow rate. Now the client's in a real pickle because it's like, do you drill a new well for $30,000 or do you have to get a water system that can adjust for that, which we do sell. So there are alternatives out there should you come across some of those difficult cases. And that's why when you go to buy a home on a well, you need to understand some of these nuances because most inspectors for homes know nothing. Zero. They know nothing about a well. They walk up to the well and they're like, okay. They turn on the water. Okay. They don't even know to check for that pressure gauge switch. So if you're buying a home, call a great company like Snelton and Sons. It's worth that investment because then you understand exactly what you're getting your hands into. Also, you're going to want to get a water testing facility. Now, at Angel Water, we do not do the testing. We facilitate that with a licensed EPA certified laboratory. Yes, you don't want a company that actually tells you, hey, your water has got problems and also sells the solutions. I mean, we do have amazing reviews, over 1,000 great Google reviews. We have 50 years in business. We're never going to, take advantage of someone like that. But I want to urge you, all of you nationwide, because we're very lucky, some of you in California, Washington State, Texas. I mean, we got a big following in Texas. Thank you so much, Texas. What we want to do is we want you to recognize that you want to be the water authority of your family. And the EPA, the Department of Health, says send that to independent lab that's EPA certified. Then you know exactly what the test results are. Then you can tell a guy like me, sell me a system that's certified to take those toxins out. And then after it's installed, I want you to test the water after the filter and prove to me that you sold me something that took out the toxins. In the McHenry area, for instance, we have arsenic in the water. That's a really big issue. It happens, it's natural. We've had fluoride. Right now, we just did a big house. We ended up having to do a $25,000 reverse osmosis system because naturally occurring fluoride is in this well that this client has, and they drilled a second well to try to get away from it, and they couldn't get away from it, so they had to invest this kind of money on this beautiful piece of property. We've had cases where there were abandoned gas stations and the tanks are leaking gasoline byproducts like toluene in the water. So again, I know I've said a lot of scary things, but in general terms, about, I'd call it 90% of the homes don't have anything scary in their well water. But you are the water authority of your family, for your family and of that well. So you do that testing, you be vigilant on it, and you make sure that your family is going to drink healthy, good, clean water. Now, if you have any further questions on this, always reach out to us. As you know, you can get a hold of us at angelwater.com. You can reach us at 847-382-7800. And as you know, my name is Drew. I am super passionate to help you.